Oh, hi there. Good evening. Tonight I wanted to, well, didn't want to, but I'm going to continue the conversation about the COVID 19 because it's obviously still an ongoing, perhaps never ending issue. Um, Now, what new information is there to bring? Well, it's the same as the old information, except for the not mentioned anymore. Uh, the virus originated from China. It was deliberately invented. It was proven to the world that it could be spread and was spread throughout the known world. And what Western media has deceptively done in an attempt to appease the Chinese based off of, Donald Trump's sanctions against them, tariffs, the outrage the Chinese felt by feeling it necessary to overrun Hong Kong. They always had a presence there, but they, in recent years, have overrun them. So a lot of people are upset about that. And not much can be done about it. I mean, it was a liability at very best. Um, the thing is, what I'm getting at, why would the Chinese admit that the virus originated from their country, have it so that some Western outlets, media outlets, even praised the Chinese Communist Party on their handling of the situation. And yet the virus spread across the world. Yet the virus is doing this and that. It's like praising someone after they've done something bad. And the Chinese Communist Party reveled in it, in that small victory. These tariffs, they've taken their toll on the Chinese economy. They have major food shortages. They're in a part of the world that sees natural disasters quite frequently. And sometimes what they call a storm over there, we'd call a tsunami over here. Except it doesn't get reported that way. It happens in some crummy little village, so nobody cares. Um, but why would they want to gloat about it? It's a horrible thing, a heinous thing that they've released into the world, and they did it deliberately. I don't care what anyone says. That's just all bullshit. And why would the Western media outlets portray it the way it is? They've divided the people, like they usually do, with one set of arguments versus the other. And there are powerful interests on both sides of the spectrum. And the problem is they've dumbed down the argument. The argument has turned into vaxxers and maskers versus anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers. That's about as stupid a set of arguments as possible. I mean, as I've said, I'll wear my mask where I'm supposed to. I don't particularly like it, but it is not the worst problem in the world. I think the ability that a nefariously evil country like the Chinese Communist Party can release a virus onto the planet is far more, it's kind of more of a problem. A lot of people go, well, what's that got to do with me? I live in a small town out in the sticks. Like, what difference does it make? If something happens over there, you might be surprised if there causes problems over where you are. You can't expect something to happen to something else and it not affect you. This is a tiny little planet we live on. And why? Who would give praise to the Chinese Communist Party for releasing this virus? Well, basically everybody who hates the West, and there's a lot of them. The English, they kind of went around doing a lot of fuckery. Same with the French, to a lesser extent the Italians. The Germans were out and about, the Portuguese, the Spanish. You see where I'm getting at here, yo? Western Europe has, they've seen the most severe of lockdowns, the most severe of punishments, and mandatory this and that, and mandates and all that kind of stuff. Over where I live, it's fairly benign. I mean, in Ontario and in Quebec, they've gotten it much harder. And I don't think that's geographical. I think that's political. I think that, as the seed of Canadian power in this country, Ontario, yes, would have gotten it the hardest. The economic powerhouse in the United States, New York, even though it is a cesspool, got it one of the hardest of all the states in the U.S. And although many of the countries who are not Western allies, who outright hate us, who will go to our enemies, such as the Chinese Communist Party, for assistance in whatever it is they need, whether it's infrastructure or whatever, anything like that, just to spite Western powers, they will praise the Chinese Communist Party for paying back the Western powers for the things they've done throughout the centuries. Because, let's face facts, the Western power do not want to pay out big dollars or anything really to these lesser countries, if you could even call them that. They're basically, a lot of them are just tribal statesmen who probably don't even remember their own history, and they needed the Chinese to kind of give their version of events, which is probably filled with a bunch of lies, so that they could kind of remember it as a collective whole in places like Africa. Because the thing is, when the white man went to Africa, they erased the majority of the population's ability to know their own history. The whites did the same thing here in Canada with the Native Indians. A lot of them can't even fucking speak their home language. I mean, English is a superior language anyway, but that's not the point. They lost a lot of their historical knowledge, and they know this, and they've been crying about it for decades. And not that the Chinese know a lot, but they twisted the arm of the Western powers because we wrote things down throughout the centuries, especially here in Canada and all that sort of stuff. So that information was available, and not to say their philosophies on basically everything were not fundamentally flawed in so many ways. They still are today. It is giving them a boost by going, all right, if you want the Chinese Communist Party to go easy on you, you will help prop up the peoples that Canada or the United States or whomever, the Western powers, have suppressed throughout the years. The ones that didn't have a voice now have one because the Chinese Communist Party is helping them. Now, the Chinese Communist Party is only helping them because it's a slap in the face to the white man. But I mean, what do the white people in power care anyway? So long as it directly doesn't affect them, they don't really care. It's like, watching 8 Mile and the black guy banging the white chick, and it's like, well, if you're banging a black chick, you're less offended. Especially if that seed is put in your head early on in life. Whereas, you sit on the outskirts and you see what it is, it's like, nope. A little bit of, tribesmen, hairy pussy, black women, that's not going to fix my opinion on the subject. I mean, I guess, if it were properly trimmed up and all that sort of stuff, then yeah, maybe it would help, but it certainly will not have the same psychological effect on me as it would a lot of other white people who have done those sort of things. And the same thing goes with, white guys that go with Asian women. All of a sudden, the travel plans to Asia, sound more normal. Did somebody tell you that next door to Vietnam is a country that does horrible barbaric things on a daily basis and their people are used to it? And they're the ones that released the coronavirus onto the world and threatened to do it again, whether publicly or not. And when I say publicly, I mean to the general public. They say it all the damn time if you watch any of their media, or if you happen to be a crooked politician who's just out to make money and to get scathed as little as possible, like the corrupt little Canadian government that we have. As it were, China does have allies, and it's mostly out of spite for the white man. Iran, it would be a notable ally. The thing about Iran is Iran thinks they still have the Persian Empire and that they're still their own entity, but they're siding with the Chinese for now. So they are allies, but they're independent, and that sort of is what it's like with the Russians. But the Russians really don't like the Chinese. They had a little war about that sort of thing. But there's a lot of personal matters between the Russians and the Western powers. During the Cold War, both sides did a lot of dickish things to each other. And that's important today because the Russians never really got it together to, go around the world looking into things. They never went to Africa. It was only in more recent history that they even went to Afghanistan. And a lot of the countries they inherited when they were the second global power were nosebleed countries that nobody wanted. And that were just a pain in the ass. Because, why invest the money in the manpower and the army to go to some mountainous region to fight some people who don't have anything, except maybe a goat or something? While you're squandering your resources, your time, your energy, and all that, just to occupy a small bit of strategic land. It's not really worth it. You want the good stuff. Like Stalin knew this. Why do you think he went to the Ukraine and stole all their wheat for? Because the Russians were starving. They went, ooh, look over there. There's something of value over there. As a colonial empire, which the Russians sort of were, they were trying to overcompensate by just gobbling up everything, when they were the Soviets around. And now, they've lost a lot of prestige. When I say prestige, I mean their honor of evilness by regressing as just Russia. And that made them lose respect to countries such as China, who believe in evil first and good second, or a very, very distant second. I mean, like in a different solar system kind of second. So very, very, very far away. It's only about the image of looking good that they are interested in. With the upper echelon of power, they want to look like the bad guys. They want to look like the best warlords, the best military tacticians, the best this, the best that. They create the best weapons. They create this. They do this. They're the entrepreneurs for invention and government and things like that. And no, you're not. You were a bunch of dirty savages, not that long ago, and you still are. So, it's not a very nice thing to say, but it happens to be the truth. And, they don't deserve polite conversation after how they've behaved. And, individuals such as myself speaking on a YouTube channel where it seems as though no one's watching, but I know for a fact that's not true. Men like me have counterparts, people doing a similar job somewhere else, and I'm not convinced they're as successful as I am. Admittedly, there are some things I'd like to improve upon, but I don't think they're as successful as I am. And for whatever their downfall was, it might just be wrong place, wrong time. Things are either worse for them or it could be better for them, but they're less influential on the dark web. or just all those sort of little things to consider. Like, yeah, the part of the country I live in is fairly COVID free. There's a little bit of it going around, but not that much really. That's why statistical information from the Google search doesn't yield many definitive results. And they go, well, we're overrun. We can't test people fast enough. Oh, bullshit. This is the first world, and you've been harping about COVID for 2 years, and you've been harping about coronaviruses and viruses and germs and bacteria and diseases for decades. There is no friggin' way you cannot test the Canadian citizens as much as you want to, except if the anti-vaxxers and the anti-maskers say, "Oh no, 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 no! If you do that, things won't look normal. We want things to look normal. They don't have to be normal. They just have to look normal." And that's why I'm more center. I don't. I mean, I don't even think there is a left and a right anymore. I just think they're just two opposing parties. There certainly aren't no Lenin. They're not Marx. They're not Fidel Castro. They're not any of those guys. Those guys, the guys running around with, purple hair and, this and that, and they believe in feminism and all that kind of junk. Is that what left is? Is being right mean you have to be a gun maniac? There are plenty of people who were considered left wingers, in case you didn't forgot some history lessons, that were gun maniacs. Like Mao Zedong, for example. Stalin, for example. I mean, what is it really? It's a bunch of idiots running around with stupid opinions, and basically, they're trying to build the biggest Jenga tower they can, both sides, and trying to get as many people on their side of the argument as possible. And since they don't respect most people's intelligence, they keep things as stupid as possible because nobody wants to be contradicted. Let's not even give them the opportunity to contradict them. Like, I'll give you an example. There's a guy named Paul Joseph Watson. He also does a YouTube channel called Anything Goes. He used to work for Alex Jones. Alex Jones got sacked from YouTube, and he's got his problems. I still like Paul Joseph Watson, but I do not like his stance on masks and vaccines and stuff like that. I understand he's in the UK and things are different over there. It's a more stressful environment. There are definitely more restrictions over there. It would seem anyway. I haven't actually been there for many years, long before COVID. But let us remember, it wasn't that long ago when, the meat industry over there, in particular the beef, was lying about something pretty important. Something called mad cow disease. You might remember that. That wasn't that long ago, actually. Yeah, so, their hands are not exactly clean. And that's the whole point. Wash your friggin' hands. What are you going to say? No, I'm not washing my hands because that's going along with the establishment. Do not comply. You dirty fucking monkey. Monkeys don't wash their hands. Well, actually, there's some monkeys in India that groom themselves in the fountains that they have, the few fountains they have, because they're not that much water. They actually, they actually do wash themselves. So it's actually quite an interesting National Geographic documentary on that. But anyway, that's beside the point. Paul Joseph Watson. I don't like his stance, but I understand why he's kept his mouth shut about the Chinese Communist Party's involvement. And he's focusing on the stupid parts of the argument. It's because he's afraid of having the plug pulled on him. That's what he's afraid of. He's afraid because he was probably a rich kid to start off with. He's probably making 20, 30 fucking grand doing his little thing on YouTube. And then you take a guy like Simon Whistler, for example, and how many cool channels he has. That guy was rich to start off with, and he's probably making like so much money with the YouTube channels he's got. And then, there are guys who kind of make a living, like Fatty, Jason Unruh, used to be known as Mouse Rebel 2. I saw him at first when he was nobody, and then he was able to climb the echelon in a way I particularly disagreed with, and he gained a lot of weight. Friggin' hell, that guy's got to boycott cheeseburgers and prime rib. Because he's about 200 pound overweight, and no, being tall does not help. Um, yeah, so those are some examples, but yeah, the reason things might be harder in the UK is not because it's more densely populated, but because the Chinese Communist Party made it a point to punish them further to impress the nations that do not like the West more so. And, one of the reasons why China wasn't annexed, no, I mean, Hong Kong wasn't annexed earlier was because of a different tax system. There was a bit different taxes were placed on Hong Kong than the mainland Chinese. That was supposed to be a deterrent to stop the Chinese mainlanders from annexing Hong Kong. And it did so for quite a number of years. And then Donald Trump came along and that all changed. But the same thing applies to us with this COVID. Some areas get hit harder because, you know, it shows that if you bend your will to the Chinese Communist Party's way, then you may see leniency. Now, everybody knows the Chinese throughout history have been notoriously bad at going back on their word, so you can't believe anything they say. Yeah, all rather terrifying stuff, isn't it? Makes having the inconvenience of having to wear that mask seem like nothing at all, doesn't it? And I mean, like, okay, let's assume this all smooths out like everybody wants. We don't have to wear masks anymore. People can go back to being gross pigs, and it doesn't matter. Um, there's some lessons to be learned from this, and there's some like, uh, you know, uh, well, points I made in a previous video, so I don't think I have to make them again. But you know, people have to rise up. And I don't mean revolution. That's a word idiots use. And to have a revolution over the government making you wear masks is about as stupid as it gets. I mean, really, a piece of cloth in most cases over your face, and that's the reason you choose to have a revolution? How about the Metro Vancouver area, British Columbia, mixing in with the Southeast Asians? Ugh, I couldn't think of anything more repulsive. I don't want to be assimilated by that thing. Yeah, no. And what do they say to people who have opinions like mine? They say, "Well, you're a racist. Your opinion doesn't count for anything." And I'm gonna have an opinion which is actually more offensive, but it's convenient because of their circumstances. Therefore, they're right and I'm wrong. It's just like, well, no, actually, that country does this. It's bad. They're the ones who are going to continue to do bad things because you're going to enable them to, but you're trying to disable me by calling me one tiny little word. Yeah. There's a lot of things going on in this world, and there's going to be a lot of people who don't like me for what I got to say, and there's going to be some people who actually do respect what I have to say. Now, whether if they're a bunch of cowards or not, and ever going to say anything or not, I have no idea. And Paul Joseph Watson probably won't because he doesn't want the plug pulled on him. He doesn't want to be pulled off YouTube. He doesn't want to stop making money. He doesn't want to sit in the cheap seats like I have to. However, that doesn't make him right. Not at all. Um, And, I did make a video about permanent travel bans to certain locations. And hell yeah, permanent travel bans there. No one's allowed to go there. You want to go there? Fine. You're never allowed to come back. It's as simple as that. We can't risk, you coming back with a new strain or variant of virus to kill us all. What? So you can drink cheap booze and party it up on some dirty beach? Well, no, actually, the beach you'll go to will probably be a clean one because that's the tourist area. And then, 2 miles down the road would be the dirtiest river in the world. So, is it worth the risk for everyone else so that you can have 2 weeks of partying? Cheap? I use cheap as in monetarily cheap, but if you come back with a virus that destroys everything, then it was highly expensive, just not in money terms. No, screw you, fuck you, in your opinion. Go to a civilized place you want to travel. I want to travel too, but I want to go to civilized places. And Europe, yes, it got hit hard. Um, and no, the French aren't the most polite most of the time, but I would much rather go there than some pygmy little village in Africa or, some other dirtball place. I don't want to go to those places. Um, so, right, throwing out some ideas there, people mull it over, um, you know, do whatever you got to do to get through your night. I understand that, putting myself here on YouTube puts me in a bit of a vulnerable position. I'm in a bit of a vulnerable position anyway. Regardless of what I do, people just want me to shut up, essentially. Um, which brings me to our sponsor. I got to try King Goblin. It finally came over here, yo. It's awesome. I had it for Christmas, and yeah, that's something the establishment didn't want me to do anymore, which is drink alcohol. But cheers. No, that I paid a heavy price for. Um, yeah, but that's not fair. Anyway, talk to people later. Have a good one.